Hey lore lovers, my name's Eric with the Lorebrarians YouTube channel, and today we'll be cutting a path through the darkness and casting light on the secrets of a mysterious island on Zendikar that holds an ancient burial site known as the Crypt of Agadeem. The island of Agadeem is known for its large array of densely grouped but seemingly derelict hedrons called the Hedron Field of Agadeem. Within these fields, and despite the hedron's apparent dormancy, magic, gravity, and the laws of nature are turned on their heads with erratic and deadly consequences. Why so many hedrons are gathered and how they have drifted from their natural course of tracing ley lines is the pursuit of inquisitive minds within the research observatory of Kabira. Mages, historians, and sorcerers work to understand the hedron field and use its power to fuel their spells. But beyond the fields and within an isolated mountainous region exists a place far deadlier than the hedron fields and far less understood. A location mages dare not tread, where even the most veteran adventurers have met gruesome demise. The Crypt of Agadeem. And it is this location, its history, and the secrets within that we'll try to understand. As with my previous video on the legendary creature Omnath, which can be found in the description below, the Crypt of Agadeem and the hedron fields have limited references or mentions in the cards and stories of Zendikar, and will require a bit of inference and theory crafting. Even so, Agadeem is a location with a potentially significant past and mysterious existence, and it's definitely one worth exploring. Alright, let's dive in. The continent of Ondu, on the plain of Zendikar, is surrounded by the Salundi Sea. Not far from Ondu, there is a group of small islands called the Salundi Isles. Although many exist, only 3 are named. The mountainous island of Bain has the largest active volcano on Zendikar, Valakut, the Molten Pinnacle. It's a sulphurous and unforgiving landscape. The tiny, sea-swept War Isle is home to ancient and mysterious ruins, guarded by magical stone statues. It is a place steeped in myth and believed to have religious significance as a passage to the afterlife. The largest mass in the Salundi Sea is the island of Agadeem, where we will focus our lens. Agadeem is of note for 2 seemingly unrelated reasons. First, it's home to the hedron fields, a massive expanse of magically imbued stones that, when active, trace the ley lines of Zendikar's mana. The field is a graveyard for discarded, derelict, or damaged hedrons, stones that have lost their purpose as well as their energy, but have nonetheless traveled across the plane to gather here. Or perhaps they have been here for centuries. Although the stones of the hedron field have long since fallen dormant, the sheer number and density of them has created a bizarre area of mysterious energy that alters the very laws of nature and magic. The second reason is that Agadeem is also home to a burial site that sits within an expansive natural cavern. Sealed behind ancient and foreign runes and guarded by hundreds of deadly traps, blood-sucking bats, and spectral entities, the Crypt of Agadeem has been shrouded in myth and misinformation for centuries. These 2 locations, related in nothing besides geography, may actually have history and fates that are intertwined. To fully understand their relationship, we must uncover their past, and we will start with the events of the original Zendikar set. The hedrons, floating stone structures that dot the landscape of the entire plane, have long held the curiosity of Zendikar. Scholars argued about their creators, and mages attempted to understand their power, that they might one day tap into the hedron's energy. Many believe them to be products of the Eldrazi, an ancient and technologically advanced race that predated any current civilization. Little do they know that the Eldrazi were vile, plain-consuming beings, and that the hedrons were created by a Planeswalker trio thousands of years ago to imprison them on Zendikar. Regardless of their origin, the people of Zendikar sought to understand the hedrons. A community of scholars, academics, and mages began to settle near the hedron field to study it. The settlement became known as Kabira, and a grand conservatory at the Kabira Crossroads was erected, its purpose to sponsor adventurers and researchers of the hedron field. Exploring parties would set out, carefully picking their way through the eerie stone graveyard to survey the field. They found that although the hedrons had drifted far from their courses and lost much of their internal magic, they coalesced into larger formations. Stranger still, the combined presence of so many hedrons created a bizarre aura that would erratically magnify or nullify magic to deadly effect. The Kabira scholars wished to learn more of the field, believing that the hedron's potential to create devastatingly powerful magic could be harnessed. But in the weeks and months that passed, tales came trickling into the settlement that an eerie mirage was seen hovering above the hedron fields. Three immense and monstrous visages with strikingly alien features towered above the hedrons on cool, clear nights. These fear-provoking illusions were known as the Three Masks, but how they came to populate the sky and what their purpose was remained unclear. The only thing for certain was that they appeared above a mountain range just beyond the field that has itself been a destination for looters, adventurers, and cultists. Amidst the crags and rocky peaks of Agadeem's mountain range, there exists a massive mouth that opens into an extensive natural cavern with vaulting ceilings and dizzying passageways. For thousands of years, the cavern has remained a burial site of a civilization long forgotten to time, called the Crypt of Agadeem. The sheer enormity of the crypt and its cave mouth can be seen in the card that bears its name. Although untold treasures and secrets are believed to lie within the numerous caverns and passageways, the crypt itself has been largely unexplored for several reasons. The stone doors marking the entrance are barred by the crypt lock, a binding of magic said to open only during the death hour when a witch vessel speaks an incantation in a forgotten ghost tongue. Beyond the doors, the cavern is heavily booby-trapped. Massive bats prowl the interior, and spirits of the dead linger. Despite the crypt's terrible defenses, a band of cunning adventurers led by Anawan the Ruin Sage have shed some light on the mysterious burial site. An inscription translated by the vampire reads, "The three shall return, and the eye shall produce its sheer fire. And the blank shall rise, and this time no soul shall escape." This is no doubt a prophecy for the return or awakening of the three Eldrazi titans, Ulamog, Kozilek, and Emrakul, that were imprisoned on Akum 6,000 years ago by the three Planeswalkers. The Eye of Ugin acted as the lock on their prison that could only be opened by the presence of three Planeswalker sparks and Ugin's Ghostfire, both of which are mentioned in the inscription. These transpire in the sets Worldwake and Rise of the Eldrazi when Jace Beleren, Chandra Nalaar, and Sarkhan Vol unwittingly closed the Eye of Ugin and awakened the Eldrazi. This very clearly ties the Crypt of Agadeem to the history of the Eldrazi. A second inscription further solidifies this fact, seen in the flavor text of the card Broodwarden. It states that, "The least of gods shall tower over the mightiest of mortals, and death shall reign over all." Clearly, those who created the crypt were keenly familiar with the Eldrazi and their destructive potential, and that the souls trapped within its caverns met their fates at the hands of these interplanar beings. These facts can loosely tie the Crypt of Agadeem to the nearby hedron fields, whose three masks sound strikingly similar to the visages of the three Eldrazi titans, and whose hedrons are known to have been tools used against the Eldrazi. A full understanding of the relationship between the two locations will require both a little theory crafting and a step nearly 6,000 years into Zendikar's past, with the first binding of the Eldrazi. On their travels across the multiverse, the vampire planeswalker Soren Markov and his core pupil, Nahiri, witnessed the Eldrazi consume a plane in its entirety, reducing it to oblivion. They feared the Eldrazi as a threat to countless more planes, and so confronted the Elder Dragon planeswalker Ugin, imploring him to join them in an effort to subdue the Eldrazi. Their plan was to lure the three titans into physical form, and then imprison them within harmless stasis, and they decided that Nahiri's home plane of Zendikar, with its rich, wild mana, would provide perfect bait. For decades they prepared, creating and aligning an extensive network of stone hedrons to the mana ley lines of the plane. Hedrons Nahiri herself crafted, while Ugin imbued them with draconic magic. Finally, after years of hard labor and toil, the Planeswalkers were prepared to spring their trap. The story of the Eldrazi imprisonment is told as follows. Soren Markov lured the Eldrazi to the plane, directing their hunger to Zendikar's unique mana. Ugin used his invisible breath to combat the Eldrazi, and his own colorless magic to bind them to the plane. And Nahiri activated her hedron network, whose power would form the foundation of the Eldrazi prison. They succeeded and trapped the Titans in stasis. But this abridged version denies the heroism, sacrifice, and unity the mortal civilizations of Zendikar demonstrated in the face of such calamitous destruction. This was not a cut, dried, and simple task, but rather an arduous and brutal conflict that involved all the races of Zendikar against the Eldrazi Titans and their broods, and lasted weeks to months. battles likely erupted all over the plane, with the Planeswalker trio leading forces of Zendikar thousands strong into fierce melee with the alien parasitic invaders. One such battle, of massive cost and utmost import, may have unfolded in the very place the Hedron Field and the Crypt of Agadeem now stand. Perhaps the struggle against the Eldrazi culminated in one last surge of force, one final victory that led to their defeat and imprisonment on Akum. It would make sense then that the Hedrons, whose purpose was to trap and nullify the Eldrazi, appeared in such large numbers above the battlefield of Agadeem. And it may go to show how grueling the struggle was that so many lost their power. It would also make sense that the civilizations who stood to face the Eldrazi threat and who had lost so much on the blood-stained field of Agadeem would construct a magnificent crypt to both honor the dead and warn others of the looming Eldrazi threat, as mentioned in the crypt's inscriptions. One final support for this theory comes in the card March from the Tomb, where we can see undead emerging from a cavern that looks strikingly similar to that of Agadeem's crypt, answering the call from beyond the grave to once more face the Eldrazi threat as it re-emerged in the battle for Zendikar. Returning to the present day, and we are left with no information for certain. Perhaps the island of Agadeem was significant in the first battle against the Eldrazi, a battleground and a graveyard for both the warriors involved and their stone constructs. A field steeped in the memories and spirits of those that came before, and filled with latent energy. Or are the field and the crypt nothing more than two of countless other ruins and mysteries that dot the plane of Zendikar, holding nothing more than what is offered at face value? That is for you to decide. But if nothing else, Agadeem is an island shrouded in myth and history, waiting to be uncovered. Thanks for watching this video on Agadeem, its Hedron Fields, and the mysterious crypt at its center. Leave a thumbs up if you liked the video, and be sure to subscribe for weekly lore content. Now I want to hear from you. Let me know your thoughts on what hides within the crypt's vaulted caverns, as well as suggestions for future videos. The references used are linked in the description below. Until next time, go forth and explore the lore.